There is a quiet exhaustion that most people carry, but almost no one talks about. It's not from work. It's not from life. It comes from constantly being someone you're not, just to be accepted. Think about it. Slowly. How many times have you held back your truth just to keep the peace? How many times have you ignored what you felt just to keep someone close? How many times have you chosen them while something inside you was quietly breaking? And the hardest part is, you don't even notice when it starts. It doesn't happen in one moment. It happens slowly, in small compromises, in silent decisions, in the parts of you that you keep putting aside, until one day, you feel it clearly. You feel disconnected, even in the middle of people. You feel tired, even when nothing is physically wrong. You feel like you're living your life, but not really inside it. Because the truth is, you didn't lose them first. You lost yourself, trying to keep them. And this is where everything begins to change. Because at some point, something inside you wakes up. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. A quiet realization that you can no longer ignore. That staying like this is costing you more than leaving ever will. And in that moment, you are faced with a choice that most people are too afraid to make. To finally choose yourself. But here's the part no one prepares you for. The moment you do, you will lose people. Not because you became cold, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped pretending. You stopped shrinking. You stopped adjusting. You stopped abandoning yourself just to be accepted. And yes, it will feel like loss in the beginning. It will feel empty. It will feel unfamiliar. It will feel like you're walking alone for the first time. But what comes after that is something rare. A life where you no longer need approval to breathe freely. A life where you no longer feel the need to hide who you are. A life where your peace is no longer dependent on who stays or who leaves. Because the moment you truly choose yourself is the moment you stop losing yourself. And that is where your freedom begins. The ones you lose were never meant to walk your true path. When you begin to choose yourself, one of the first things you will notice is that certain people begin to fade from your life. It will not always happen with arguments or clear endings. Sometimes it will be quiet, almost natural, like a slow drifting apart that you cannot fully explain. Conversations will feel different, the connection will feel weaker, and the effort to keep things the same will start to feel heavy. At first, this can be confusing and painful because you may think you are doing something wrong. You may question yourself and wonder if you have changed too much or if you are becoming difficult to be around. But the truth is much deeper than that. You are not losing people because you are becoming worse. You are losing people because you are becoming real. When you stop pretending, when you stop agreeing just to avoid conflict, when you stop giving more than you have just to keep someone close, the dynamic changes. The connection that once existed was often built on a version of you that was not fully honest. And when that version disappears, the relationship no longer has the same foundation to stand on. This is not something to fear. It is something to understand. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to walk with you as you grow. Some people are only meant to meet a certain version of you, and when you outgrow that version, they naturally fall away. What feels like loss is often just alignment. It is life gently removing what no longer fits the person you are becoming. And if you look deeper, you will start to see something even more powerful. Many of the connections you were trying so hard to hold on to were not built on truth. They were built on comfort, habit, and sometimes even fear. You stayed because it felt easier than letting go. You stayed because you were afraid of being alone. You stayed because a part of you believed that this was the best you could have. But choosing yourself begins to break that illusion. It slowly opens your eyes to the difference between a real connection and a familiar one. A real connection allows you to be fully yourself without fear. A familiar connection simply keeps repeating the same patterns, even if those patterns hurt you. You may begin to notice that some people only felt close to you when you were quiet, when you agreed, when you gave more than you received. The moment you start speaking honestly, setting limits, or choosing your own peace, their energy changes. Not because you did something wrong, but because the version of you they were comfortable with is no longer there. This realization can feel heavy at first. It can make you question everything. You may even feel the urge to go back to who you were, just to keep things the same. But deep down, you will know that going back means losing yourself again. And slowly, with time, something inside you becomes stronger than that fear. You begin to understand that not everyone is meant to understand you. Not everyone is meant to stay. And not everyone is meant to grow with you. Some people are simply part of a chapter, not the whole story. When you truly accept this, the pain begins to change. It does not disappear immediately, but it becomes lighter, more meaningful. You stop seeing these endings as rejection, and you start seeing them as direction. You begin to trust that every person who leaves is creating space for someone who will not require you to shrink, someone who will meet you in your truth, someone who will not be confused by your growth, but will respect it. And most importantly, you begin to understand that losing people is not always a sign that something is wrong with you. Sometimes it is the clearest sign that you are finally becoming who you were always meant to be. So instead of holding on tightly, you start allowing things to flow naturally. You stop forcing connections that feel heavy. You stop chasing people who are slowly walking away. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. And in that quiet shift, something beautiful happens. You begin to walk your true path, not surrounded by everyone you once knew, but aligned with the version of yourself that finally feels real, steady, and at peace. What felt like comfort was quietly keeping you trapped. For a long time, you may have believed that comfort meant safety. You stayed in places that felt familiar, with people you understood, in patterns you could predict. Even if something inside you felt unsettled, you told yourself this was normal. You convinced yourself that this is just how life is supposed to feel. A little heavy, a little confusing, but still manageable. But what you called comfort was not always peace. Sometimes it was just something you had learned to tolerate. You got used to being misunderstood. You got used to not expressing everything you felt. You got used to adjusting your behavior so things would not become difficult. Over time, these small adjustments became your normal, and what once felt wrong slowly began to feel acceptable. This is how comfort becomes a trap, not in a loud or obvious way, but in a quiet and gradual one. It slowly lowers your standards without you noticing. It teaches you to accept less, to expect less, and to believe that asking for more will only create problems. You may have stayed in certain relationships because leaving felt harder than staying. You may have held on to situations that drained you simply because you knew how they worked. The pain was familiar, and in a strange way, that familiarity felt safer than the unknown. But the truth is, familiarity is not the same as alignment. Just because something feels known does not mean it is right for you. Deep inside, there was always a small voice telling you that something was off. Maybe it came as a quiet discomfort after certain conversations. Maybe it showed up as a feeling of exhaustion that never fully went away. Maybe it appeared in moments where you felt disconnected, even when you were surrounded by others. That voice was not there to confuse you. It was there to guide you. Choosing yourself means finally listening to that voice. It means accepting that what feels comfortable might actually be holding you back. It means understanding that growth will never come from staying in the same place that kept you stuck. When you begin to step out of this comfort, it will not feel easy. In fact, it may feel uncertain, unstable, and even a little scary. You may question your decision. You may wonder if you are making things harder than they need to be. But this discomfort is different. It is not the kind that slowly drains you. It is the kind that stretches you, that pushes you towards something better. It is the kind that leads to clarity. You begin to see things more clearly. You begin to understand what truly feels right and what you were simply tolerating. You start to notice how much energy you were spending just to maintain situations that were not giving you anything in return. And with that awareness, you begin to change. You stop holding on to what feels heavy just because it is familiar. You stop choosing comfort over truth. You stop settling for a life that feels easy on the surface but empty underneath. Instead, you start moving toward what feels real, even if it is uncertain, even if it requires courage, even if it means standing alone for a while. Because real peace is not found in staying where you feel comfortable. It is found in living where you feel true. And once you experience that kind of peace, You will never again confuse comfort with happiness. You were never too much. You were just surrounded by those who couldn't hold your depth. At some point in your life, you started to believe that something about you was too much. Maybe it was the way you felt things deeply, the way you noticed small changes, the way you cared more than others seemed to. You were told, directly or indirectly, that you were too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, or too complicated. At first, you did not question it. You trusted those voices, and slowly you began to adjust yourself. You spoke a little less, you shared a little less, you reacted less openly. You started editing your thoughts before saying them, filtering your feelings before expressing them, and holding back parts of yourself just to make things easier for others. Over time, this became your habit. You learned how to be acceptable instead of being real. You learned how to be easy instead of being honest. And without realizing it, you began to disconnect from the very parts of you that made you who you are. But the truth is, you were never too much. You were simply in spaces that could not understand you. You were offering depth in places that were only comfortable with surface-level connection. You were bringing honesty into environments that preferred silence. You were showing emotion in situations where people were used to avoiding it. And when your depth met their limits, instead of questioning the environment, you questioned yourself. You began to shrink to fit into spaces that were too small for you. You reduced your expectations, lowered your voice, and made yourself easier to handle. You tried to become someone who would not make others uncomfortable, even if it meant making yourself feel unseen. But no matter how much you adjusted, something inside you never felt fully satisfied. There was always a quiet feeling that you were holding back, that you were not being completely yourself. That feeling was not weakness, it was awareness. Choosing yourself means finally listening to that awareness. It means realizing that your emotions are not a burden. Your depth is not a problem. Your ability to care, to think deeply, to feel strongly is not something to fix. It is something to understand and respect. You begin to see that the issue was never your nature. The issue was where you were placing it. Not everyone has the capacity to hold real conversations, real emotions, or real presence. Some people are only comfortable with what is light, simple, and easy. And when they encounter something deeper, they may pull away, not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar to them. This is where your clarity begins. You stop trying to explain yourself to people who are not ready to understand. You stop proving your worth to those who cannot recognize it. You stop shrinking just to maintain connections that never allowed you to fully exist. Instead, you begin to accept yourself as you are. You allow yourself to feel without apology. You allow yourself to speak honestly without fear. You allow yourself to take up space without guilt. And as you do this, something powerful begins to change. You start attracting different kinds of connections. People who do not feel overwhelmed by your depth, but who appreciate it. People who do not ask you to be less, but who meet you where you are. People who do not see your emotions as a problem, but as a sign of something real. But even before those people arrive, something more important happens. You become comfortable with yourself. You no longer feel the need to hide, to reduce, or to pretend. You begin to feel steady in your own presence. Even when you are alone, you understand yourself in a way that does not depend on anyone else's approval. And in that understanding, you find peace. Because the moment you stop believing that you are too much, you also stop accepting anything that makes you feel like you are not enough. And that shift changes the entire direction of your life. You can't become whole in places that force you to hide who you are. There is a quiet cost to pretending that most people never talk about. It does not show up immediately, and it does not always feel dramatic. It builds slowly, in small moments that seem harmless at first. You hold back a thought here, you ignore a feeling there, you choose silence instead of honesty just to keep things smooth. Over time, these moments begin to shape the way you live. You start to create a version of yourself that feels easier for others to accept. You smile when something bothers you. You agree when you feel something different. You stay in situations that do not feel right because speaking up feels uncomfortable. And little by little, you move further away from your true self. At first, you may not even notice it. Everything looks fine on the outside. You are maintaining relationships, avoiding conflict, and keeping things stable, but inside, something feels off. There is a quiet disconnect, a feeling that you are present, but not fully there, as if you are living your life from a distance. This is what happens when you spend too much time hiding who you are. You begin to lose clarity. You start questioning your own feelings because you are so used to ignoring them. You forget what you truly want because you have spent so long focusing on what others expect. You lose your natural sense of direction because you are constantly adjusting yourself to fit into situations that were never aligned with you. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to recognize yourself. Choosing yourself means breaking this pattern, even when it feels difficult. It means allowing yourself to be honest, not in a harsh or reactive way, but in a calm and clear way. It means expressing what you feel without constantly filtering it through fear. It means setting boundaries where they are needed, even if it changes how others see you. This is not about pushing people away. It is about no longer pushing yourself aside. You begin to understand that any place or relationship that requires you to hide your truth is not a place where you can grow. It may feel stable, it may feel familiar, but it will never allow you to become whole. Wholeness comes from alignment. It comes from living in a way where your actions match your inner truth, where what you feel, what you say, and what you do are no longer disconnected. This kind of life may not always be easy. Being honest can create discomfort. It can change dynamics. It can lead to difficult conversations or even distance from certain people. But it also brings something that pretending never could. It brings clarity. It brings self-respect. It brings a deep sense of peace that comes from knowing you are no longer hiding from your own life. And as you continue on this path, something begins to shift within you. You stop fearing rejection as much because you are no longer rejecting yourself. You stop seeking acceptance in the same way because you have already accepted who you are. You begin to feel grounded, steady, and real in a way that does not depend on external validation. You realize that being yourself is not something to earn. It is something to allow. And once you truly allow it, once you stop hiding and start living in your truth, you begin to experience life in a completely different way. Not as someone trying to fit in, but as someone who finally belongs within themselves. Letting go isn't losing them. It's finally returning to yourself. Letting go is often misunderstood. It feels like something is being taken away from you, like you are losing a connection that once meant everything. You remember the moments, the conversations, the way things used to feel, and it creates a strong pull to hold on, even when you know deep down that something is no longer right. You may try to fix it, to bring it back to how it was, to hold the connection together with effort and hope. You tell yourself that if you try a little harder, if you give a little more, things will return to what they once were. But over time, you begin to notice that no matter how much you give, something still feels missing. That is because you are not holding on to what is real. You are holding on to what it used to be, or what you hoped it would become. And this is where the struggle begins. You are caught between the memory of what felt meaningful and the reality of what no longer aligns. Letting go in this moment feels like giving up something important, like walking away from a part of your life that you cannot replace. But what you may not see clearly yet is that holding on is also costing you something. Every time you hold on to something that no longer fits, you are asking yourself to stay in a place that is not true to who you are anymore. You are choosing familiarity over honesty. You are choosing attachment over peace. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to feel tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of carrying something that no longer moves with you. Tired of trying to make something work that has already run its course. Letting go is not about losing them. It is about releasing what is no longer in alignment with you. It is about allowing yourself to step out of a situation where you had to constantly adjust, where you had to ignore your own needs, where you had to hold everything together on your own. It is about choosing truth over attachment. At first, this can feel empty. There may be silence where there used to be noise, space where there used to be presence. You may feel the absence deeply, and it may take time to adjust to this new reality. But within that space, something important begins to happen. You begin to reconnect with yourself. You start to notice your own thoughts more clearly. You begin to feel your emotions without distraction. You start to understand what you truly want, not what you were trying to hold on to. This is the return. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about coming back to who you were before you started losing yourself in something that was not meant to stay. You begin to rebuild your sense of self, not based on a connection, but based on your own truth. You learn to stand on your own, to feel complete within yourself, to find peace that does not depend on someone else's presence. And as this process continues, you start to see things differently. You no longer view letting go as failure. You see it as clarity. You understand that some things are not meant to last forever, not because they are not meaningful, but because they were only meant to serve a certain part of your journey. You also begin to trust yourself more. You trust that if something no longer feels right, it is okay to release it. You trust that creating space is not something to fear, but something that allows new and better things to enter your life. And most importantly, you begin to feel lighter. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer holding on to something that was quietly weighing you down. Letting go is not the end of something valuable. It is the beginning of something honest. It is the moment you stop trying to keep what is leaving and start choosing what truly belongs to you. And in that choice, you do not lose yourself anymore. You find yourself again, more clearly, more deeply, and more peacefully than ever before. The moment you stop seeking approval, your real power awakens. For a long time, you may not even realize how much of your life has been shaped by the need for approval. It becomes so normal that it feels like part of who you are. Before you speak, you think about how it will be received. Before you decide, you wonder how others will react. Before you take a step forward, you look around for permission, even if no one has openly asked you to. This quiet habit slowly takes control of your life. You begin to measure your worth based on how others respond to you. A small sign of acceptance makes you feel secure, while even a hint of rejection can make you question everything about yourself. You start to live carefully, always adjusting, always making sure you are not doing anything that could make someone pull away. At first, it may feel like you are being kind, thoughtful, or understanding, but over time, it becomes clear that something deeper is happening. You are not just being aware of others. You are slowly losing awareness of yourself. You begin to forget what you truly want. You begin to doubt your own choices. You start to silence your instincts because they might not match what others expect. And without realizing it, you are no longer living your life from within. You are living it based on reactions from the outside. This is where your power begins to fade. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet one. You hesitate more. You second-guess simple decisions. You feel uncertain even when you know what is right for you. And this constant need for validation keeps you stuck in a cycle where you are always waiting for someone else to confirm your direction. Choosing yourself means breaking this cycle. It means slowly stepping away from the need to be approved, understood, or accepted in every moment. It means realizing that your life cannot be built on other people's opinions, because those opinions are always changing, always shifting, and often not based on your truth. At first, this shift may feel uncomfortable. You may feel unsure without that familiar sense of reassurance. You may question whether you are making the right choices without someone else confirming them. But this discomfort is part of the process, because as you continue, something begins to change within you. You start to listen to yourself more closely. You begin to notice that you already know what feels right and what does not. You begin to trust your own judgment, even if it is not perfect. You realize that clarity does not come from outside voices. It comes from paying attention to your own. This is where your real power begins to awaken. It is not loud or forceful. It does not need to prove anything. It is a quiet confidence that comes from within. It is the ability to stand by your choices without constantly explaining them. It is the strength to move forward, even when not everyone agrees with you. You begin to act with intention instead of reaction. You begin to make decisions based on your values instead of your fears. You stop asking, "Will they accept this?" and start asking, "Does this feel true to me?" And this shift changes everything. You no longer feel controlled by others' opinions. You no longer feel the need to constantly adjust yourself to fit into every situation. You become more stable, more grounded, more clear in who you are. This does not mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop losing yourself while caring. You learn to respect others, without abandoning your own truth. You learn to listen without automatically changing yourself. You learn to connect without needing to be approved in every moment. And as this becomes your new way of living, you start to feel a deep sense of freedom, because for the first time, your life is no longer guided by fear of rejection. It is guided by understanding of yourself. You realize that approval was never the thing you truly needed. What you needed was trust in yourself. And once you have that, once you truly begin to trust who you are and the choices you make, you step into a level of power that no one can take away from you. It is not given by others, and it does not depend on anyone staying or leaving. It comes from you, and it stays with you as long as you continue choosing yourself. Losing people hurts, but losing yourself slowly destroys you. There is no need to pretend that losing people is easy. It is not. When someone who once felt important begins to disappear from your life, it creates a kind of emptiness that is hard to explain. You feel their absence in small moments, in Prawitchni routines, in the silence where there used to be conversation. You remember how things once felt, and a part of you wishes it could all return to that version again. It is natural to feel this way. You are human. You connect. You care. You invest your time and your emotions. And when something ends, it leaves a mark. It may bring sadness, confusion, even moments of doubt where you question whether you made the right choice. But beneath all of this, there is a deeper truth that you cannot ignore. Staying in a place where you are not truly valued, where you cannot fully be yourself, where you feel like you have to constantly adjust just to keep the connection alive, comes with a cost that is far greater than temporary pain. That cost is you. When you stay in those spaces, you do not lose yourself all at once. It happens slowly, in ways that are almost invisible in the beginning. You start to hold back your thoughts. You stop expressing your real feelings. You ignore the discomfort inside you because it feels easier than facing it. At first, these seem like small compromises, but over time, they begin to shape your identity. You become quieter than you truly are. You become less certain of your own voice. You begin to question your worth, not because something is wrong with you, but because you are constantly placing yourself in environments that do not reflect your value. And the longer you stay, the more disconnected you feel. You may still be surrounded by people, but you feel alone inside. You may still be part of conversations, but you feel unheard. You may still be present, but you do not feel seen. This is the silent damage of losing yourself. It does not break you suddenly. It slowly weakens your connection with who you are until you no longer recognize yourself clearly. Choosing yourself may bring pain in the beginning. You may feel the loss, the distance, the absence of people who once felt close. You may go through moments where you wonder if it would have been easier to stay. But that pain is honest. It is clear. It moves through you, and with time, it begins to soften. The pain of losing yourself is different. It stays. It lingers. It becomes part of your daily life. It makes everything feel heavier, even when nothing looks wrong from the outside. This is why choosing yourself matters so deeply. It is not about avoiding pain. It is about choosing the kind of pain that leads to growth, instead of the kind that slowly breaks you down. When you choose yourself, you protect your identity. You protect your peace. You protect your ability to feel, to think, and to live in a way that is true to you. You may walk alone for a while, but in that space, you begin to rebuild something strong. You reconnect with your voice. You understand your needs more clearly. You start to feel present in your own life again. You begin to experience a sense of stability that does not depend on who is around you. And slowly, something changes. The emptiness you once felt begins to fill, not with distractions or temporary connections, but with a deeper sense of self. You realize that being alone is not the same as being lost. In fact, it is often the space where you finally find yourself again. And as you continue on this path, you begin to attract different kinds of connections. People who do not require you to shrink. People who do not make you question your worth. People who meet you with the same honesty and presence that you now bring into your own life. But even before those people arrive, something more important happens. You become enough for yourself. You no longer depend on others to feel complete. You no longer stay in situations just to avoid being alone. You no longer sacrifice your truth just to keep someone close. You understand, deeply and clearly, that losing people may hurt for a while, But losing yourself is something you can never afford. And once you truly understand this, once it becomes part of the way you see your life, you will never again choose a connection that costs you your own identity. Because in the end, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And choosing that, protecting that, and honoring that is the foundation of a life that feels real, peaceful, and free.